ARRLNTS Net Monthly at 6:30 p.m. W5FC. Dallas Races Net, first and third Sunday, 8 p.m., W5FC.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
We need to use the repeater before we begin tonight's 19 Skynet. This is KFI's PDS. My name is Billy, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? The directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.880 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. And remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society discussion topic of the evening, Was Up, space exploration and space history, Constellation of the week, space launches of the week, recent astronomical discoveries, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and our 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in, but this time I'll turn the net over to my alternate net control, Tom, KE5ICX, if you'll do the check-in honors, please, from KFI's PDS.
Thank you, Ms. Billy. This is KE5ICX. I'll be your alternate control this evening. We'll go ahead and get started with low power short time check-ins. If you are one of those, please come now with your call sign, phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from, and let me know if you're low power short time. Here we go.
This is Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform, Sierra, Gus, far northeast Dallas, low power.
get more on the first round. We'll see. W5GUS, Gus, over in far, far northeast Dallas, low power. Do I have any other low power short time check-ins? Please come now. All right, well then we'll go on to general check-ins. Please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. General check-in.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill in Irving.
Kilo, Indigo, 5, Zebra, Kilo, Lima. My name is Brian and I'm in North Dallas.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda in DeSoto.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz, the Solar System, Planet Earth, North America, United States, Mesquite.
Okay, it's a little bit of a slow start, but I'll get folks checked in. I got N5BB, Bill in Irving, K5ZKL, that would be Brian in North Dallas. Welcome, Brian. WB50ZL, Miss Brenda in DeSoto, and that guy, K5JHA, Chaz from, well, everywhere, from Solar System to Mesquite. Whatever that means, but he's there. I'll take additional check-ins. If you'd like to join us, please come now.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Alpha Papa Lima, Patrick in Dallas.
KN6 WYF, Neil, visiting from Ventura, California.
Okay, well, I picked up two. Boy, it's like pulling teeth this evening. But I've got two. I got KG5APL, that's Patrick in Dallas. And I've got Kilo, I think it's Kilo November 6, Whiskey Yankee Sierra. Correct me if I'm wrong, Neil, originally from Ventura, California, and visiting us. Neil, did I get your call right?
It's KN, so Kilo November 6, Whiskey Yankee Foxtrot.
Very good. I almost got it right. So I get KN6 Whiskey Yankee Foxtrot. I've got you, Neil. Welcome to the Dallas area. We're glad you're here. And don't forget, there's another net after this one. We go until midnight. So just to let you know that. All right, I'm going to do one more round over air, and then I'm going to head over to Echolink. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tony, in the kitchen. Dallas.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton.
Kilo 5, Mike Charlie Delta, Cody in Dallas, low power. Not sure if you read me earlier.
W5, bacon, lettuce, tomato. W5 BLT, Bill, Garland.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Papa, Lima, Lima, Huey, low power, short time, Wilbur, KF5 PLL.
Okay, I got NK5TM, Tony in Dallas, KG5, Whiskey Victor Lima, that's James over in Carrollton, K5MCD, Cody in Dallas, low power, W5BLT, Mr. Bacon, Lettuce, and Tomato, that would be Bill in Garland, and then KFPLL, Huey, who is low power, short time, and knows Wilbur. So we got you guys checked in. I'm going to go over to Echolink here to pick up anybody there. If you'd like to join us and you're on Echolink, please come now with your call sign, phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. I will give you extra time. Echolink only, please.
Number 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Clay in the street. Golf 5, Tango, November Foxtrot, Johnny in Austin.
Five Echo Bravo Bravo, David in Springtown.
This is Kilo 5, Kilo, Tango, X-Ray, Kelly in Quinlan.
I'm doing some paperwork here, almost ready for us. All right, here we go. This is who we got. I got N50F, Clay over in Mesquite, KG5TNS. That's Johnny in Austin. Welcome, Johnny. W5EBB, David in Spring County. Moved. K5KTX, Miss Kelly in Quinlan. N5IMS, JJ in Carrollton. And K5JDW, John in Norman. I got you guys through the chat. I'm going to open it up to anybody who would like to check in. Any mode, please come now with your call sign, phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from.
Kilo Bravo 9, 0 Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth.
November Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth.
Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo Lima, Bill in New Orleans.
And we picked up three more. I got KB9SOK, Sean in Fort Worth, and NV5F, Virginia, also in Fort Worth, and KF5ZBL, Mr. Bill, working in New Orleans. Well, not right now, he's not, but, well, maybe he is, who knows. Okay, let's see here. Well, you know what? Let me try one more round since we had to pick up a number of people here on the third or fourth round. If you'd like to join us, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. All right, Miss Billy, we're up to 22 check-ins. I'll send it back to you from KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom, and copy that, 22. All right, welcome to all who have checked in to Skynet. All right, let's get started with general announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. If you have an announcement for this evening's net, please come now with your call sign.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
C5PM, Tony, good evening. What announcements do you have for us?
Good evening, Billy. We're almost out of months, and I guess that's a good situation for anyone who is almost out of money, but it also means that we're almost out of time. Time for what? Nominations for the Whit and Ann Griffith Community Service Award. The Dallas Amateur Radio Club is still hoping you'll take some time here in the last few days of the month and nominate a DARC member who that you feel has gone above and beyond in the cause of public service through amateur radio in the past year. That would be 2022. If you do feel you know such a person, even if you yourself are not a DARC member, you can contact the board of directors or use the handy-dandy Contact Us form at w5fc.org. You don't have to write much, just a couple hundred words would be fine. A few good sentences could be great. If you feel that you know someone who's a DARC member who deserves this award for their work in 2022, please contact us. The clock is ticking. This is the last night, the last net of the night that you might hear if you're very tired, but it is not the last net of the night that we're going to have. We do have the Afterglow movie discussion coming up at 10:30 p.m. After clearing up some confusion tonight, tonight's movie is Apollo 13. Yes, Tom deliberately scheduled a good one for a night when he knows we're all tired to make sure that we stay up and participate in the Afterglow movie discussion. That's 10:30 plus or minus a few minutes on this repeater tonight. And wait, there's more. I noticed right about the time I started talking that January has 5 Mondays. I was thinking to myself, what net should I announce for this Monday? And I realized it's a surprise. Well, it's only sort of a surprise. It's really just a fun net in this case. I believe that we still have quite a bit of material that Aaron and JJ and Tom, I think mainly JJ and 5IMS, wrote for us for a previous surprise net. We were playing Name That Movie. We had a memorable quote or situation or even a description of a musical cue from a movie, and the participants had to guess what it was. Now, I'm going to announce this again if I can on the Afterglow net. If you are a movie fan, perhaps you would like to suggest some of these. We've been doing them in the form of multiple choice questions, and I'd love to get more contributions to make Monday's net a success. So, NT5TM at w5fc.org if you'd like to propose some multiple choice clues for Name That Movie this Monday at 7 p.m. on 14688. We'll make it work. It's a surprise. It's a surprise to everyone, including me. NT5TM, back to net.
Thank you, Tony. That sounds like a lot of fun. Looking forward to that net. Does anyone else have any announcements for this evening's net? If so, please come now with your call sign. Not hearing anything, so I'll go ahead with some announcements of my own. The AMSAT Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 2 nets available to Dallas residents on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time. You'll need Echolink installed and you registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website at www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. The Dallas AMSAT Net East, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Tuesday at 8 on this repeater, 146.880 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9. Tom N5HYT is net control. All are welcome to check in. First Tuesday of the month is the DARC Club night, so there's no AMSAT East on that night. Dallas AMSAT Net West is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the repeater, 147.140 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9 and a positive offset. DARC hosts several Monday night nets. First month is Ham Fixin's Net. This is a net where you can share recipes, ask a question about food, share an anecdote about food, or just come to collect recipes. There are a lot of good ones that get shared on. The second Monday of the month is MCOM 101, Emergency Communications. On the third Monday, come back for a second helping of Ham Fixin's Net. Fourth Monday is GeekNet. And as Tony mentioned, if there's a fifth Monday, it is a surprise net. If we told you what it is, it wouldn't be a surprise. On-air participation is encouraged. Tuesdays, AMSAT East at 8 p.m., question and answers, info and news for amateur satellites. And Fridays is Search City Simulation at 8 p.m. Learn about emergency radio communications via CERT-trained amateur radio operators. Melissa, KI5GRH, is usually the net control. Visit the most disaster-prone city in the universe every Friday. Search City, all are welcome. And Saturdays is the Night of Nets, with TechNet from 7 to 8 p.m., and of course at 9 p.m., Skynet. And as Tony, following Skynet at 10:30 is the Afterglow Movie Net. On that in just a moment. First and third Sundays is the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air. And ARRLNet National Traffic System Training Net is every night at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. We're welcome to check in on any or all of these nets. And as Tony mentioned, at 10:30 following Skynet is the Afterglow Movie Net. This is a net where we announce a movie at the end of our Afterglow, and we watch the movie during the week and come back the following Saturday night and discuss the movie. We discuss anything from plot and characterization, special effects, music, and any other interesting trivia or tidbits about the movie. So join us for the Afterglow Movie Net. So at this time, I will turn over to Tom, KE5ICX, if you will read us tonight's Afterglow info from KF5 PBS.
Well, thank you, Miss Billy, and I always pride myself on giving a very accurate analysis and synopsis. So here we go, tonight's Afterglow info. Jim Lovell looked at the stopped-up sink. His wife, Marilyn, stared at her husband. He'd been to the moon and back, yet how come he couldn't clear up a stopped-up drain? Lovell grabbed the plunger and shouted into his sleep, "Houston, I've begun transposition and docking," and rammed the rubber suction device into the kitchen sink. All to no avail. The standing water just stood there, unmoved by his heroic efforts. Marilyn spoke to her husband. "Honey, call a local plumber. He'll fix it." "And negative on that. I'm going 100% oxygen, so I cannot hear you. Over." And with that, Lovell donned his A7L space suit helmet and turned the oxygen level to 11. Join us for another Afterglow movie, Apollo 13. Expect 7 Delta V's of separation with Kevin Bacon. That's tonight at 10:30 p.m. Back to you, Miss Billy, from KE5ICX.
Thank you very much, Tom. You can keep up with all the DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, w5fc.org. This is KF5PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. So at this time, I'll turn the net over to Chaz, KF5JHA. The net is yours.
Thank you, Billy. Good evening, everyone. Tom, I must have looked at the wrong movie. That description doesn't fit the movie I was watching. The next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting will be held on Friday, February the 24th, 2023. The meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas and also held on Zoom. There was a meeting last night, and it was a great meeting. The feature speaker will be John Kelly, and his topic will be on his time at NASA. Now, Saturday night public observing sessions have begun again. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday nights so that there would be an opportunity for live reports from the past public observing sessions. On the first Saturday of each month, the stargazing is held at Fairview. On the second Saturday, the stargazing is held at Cedar Hill. On the third Saturday, it's stargazing at Frisco. And on the fourth Saturday, the stargazing is held in Rockwall. Now, tonight's stargazing was canceled due to the clouds. Check the TASS website, texasastro.org, for the most up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. And this is KF5JHA, giving it back to KF5PDS.
Thanks very much, Chaz. I bet when you realized you were watching the wrong movie, did it give you a stinking feeling? Next up is National Space Society events and activities. So at this time, I'll call on Bill, N5ZB. What news do you have for us about the National Space Society?
Thank you, Billy. As I run back to the radio, hold on, let me turn down the volume so I don't have feedback. Okay, this is N5BB. I happen to be the membership director and member at large of the National Space Society North Texas chapter. We meet each month on the second Sunday afternoon at Spring Creek Barbecue in Irving, which is on Highway 183 at Beltline. Our next meeting will be the 12th of January, Sunday. And well, I thought I had the topic handy here, but I'll see if I can find it before my section is over here. I'm running out of time here. We have a few other events coming up. Here we go. On February the 12th, our meeting will be the NASA JSC virtual speaker Lunar ISRU presentation. It'll be Can We Live on the Moon? By Dr. Tanya Rogers. She's an ISRU test director at NASA Johnson Space Center and the co-founder, CEO of the People's CO2, a climate-focused carbon capture company. She enjoys innovative problem-solving for space and Earth technologies and makes friends with anybody who likes spiders or surface tension. And she's going to talk about, through the extraction and processing of resources into mission commodities such as rocket propellants, life support consumables, and fuel cell reactants, in situ research, that's the ISR thing, in situ resource utilization enhances and evolves the cislunar lander, and surface transportation systems required for human exploration, expanding and enhancing how humans get to explore and return from the moon. So this is going to be on February the 12th, Sunday afternoon. So if you would like to view that, you can do that either in person. She will be virtual, but you can come to our meeting and watch it projected with other people, or you can do it virtually over WebEx. And if you're interested in any of that, you could either join our group, or you can ask me for a visitor pass for the WebEx meeting. To do that, send me an email at space@byrom.net, space@byrom.net, or n5bb@arrl.net. Either one works. Of course, the really big news coming up later this year in North Texas is the International Space Development Conference, ISDC. That will be May the 25th through the 28th, 2023, at Embassy Suites by Hilton in Frisco. This is a big conference. There's a lot of big names there. People who are big in the space industry, people like Axiom Aerospace and all kinds of other companies that are, I just happen to mention them, Lockheed Martin, many other companies and organizations, NASA people from other countries also. So if you'd like to go to this conference, if you're a National Space Society member, you will get a significant discount. So for the next few weeks, I believe, I don't have the exact date, but up to about April the 1st, you can get the biggest discount by, number one, registering early, and number two, being a member of the National Space Society. Again, let me know if you have any interest in that. Or you can just do a web search for National Space Society or International Space Development Conference. That's ISDC 2023. The website is isdc2023.nss.org. And that's all I have for now. This is N5BB. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Bill. And just want to give out a little advertising blurb. The National Space Society of North Texas has an active Facebook page. Just type National Space Society of North Texas into the search box and request access. You'll receive meeting reminders and club activities. This is KF5TDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the Skynet. All right, next up is discussion topic of the evening. So tonight I've chosen fractal antennas. I remember in past weeks there was a mention of something fractal, and someone commented, this would be a good topic. I did and found a lot of cool things, so I'm going to reference quite a few things. I'm not going to get too deep in the math, but you can dive deeper for sure. This is a topic that we could talk on all night, so I'm going to have to watch my time on this one. This is a topic that I really love. I love fractals. And if you don't know about fractals, you certainly can go out and look. There's lots of cool videos. Fractal art is really super cool. And if you don't have a background in fractals, that's okay. Just go out and explore, and you'll learn about fractals just by looking. There's some cool videos out on a channel called Number File, and they do a great demonstration of the Bro set and a lot of other cool fractals. So beware, it is a rabbit hole. You can spend several hours out there just in these wonderful math. Have fun with that. So tonight our topic is fractal antennas. But to start, I wanted to give just a brief introduction to fractals. So in mathematics, a fractal is a geometric shape containing detailed structure at arbitrarily small scales, usually having a fractal dimension strictly exceeding the topological dimension. Fractals, many of them appear similar at various scales, as illustrated in the Mandelbrot set, which is a good place to start if you're not familiar with fractals. Start with the Mandelbrot set. This exhibition of similar patterns at increasingly smaller scales is called self-similarity. And fractal geometry lies within the mathematical branch of measure theory. So one way that fractals are different from finite geometric figures is how they scale. Doubling the edge lengths of a filled polygon multiplies its area by 4, which is 2 raised to the power of 2. Likewise, if the radius of a filled sphere is doubled, its volume scales by 8, which is 2 to the power of 3. However, if a fractal's one-dimensional lengths are all doubled, the spatial content of the fractal scales by a power that's not necessarily an integer and is in general greater than its conventional dimension. And this power is called the fractal dimension of the geometric object, which distinguishes it from the conventional dimension, which is formally called the topological dimension. So that's just a brief introduction to fractals themselves. So tonight we're going to talk about fractal antennas. So a fractal antenna is an antenna that uses a fractal self-similar design to maximize the effective length or increase the perimeter on inside sections or the outer structure of material that can receive or transmit electromagnetic radiation within a given total surface area or volume. If you look at the Wikipedia article, which is where I'm getting the information from, there's an interesting and good example of a fractal antenna, which is a space-filling curve called a Minkowski island. So any fractals that I mentioned tonight, you can go look at their Wikipedia page on YouTube. Minkowski island is just one of many. And such fractal antennas are also referred to as multi-level and space-filling curves, but the key aspect lies in their repetition of a motif over 2 or more scale sizes or iterations. I'm going to talk about a few different types that have different iterations. For this reason, fractal antennas are very compact, multiband or wideband, and have useful applications in cellular telephone and microwave communications. Fractal antennas' response differs markedly from traditional antenna designs in that it's capable of operating with good to excellent performance at many different frequencies simultaneously. Normally, standard antennas have to be cut for the frequency in which they are to be used, and thus the standard antennas only work well at that frequency. This fractal nature of the antenna shrinks size without the use of any components such as inductors or capacitors. So on the page it lists a few different types of antenna, the first one being periodic antennas. These are arrays invented in 1952 and commonly seen as TV antennas. It was long before Mandelbrot coined the word fractal in 1975. Some authors, for instance Nathan Cohen, consider log periodic antennas to be an early form of fractal antenna due to their infinite self-similarity at all scales. However, they have a finite length even in the theoretical limit with an infinite number of elements and therefore do not have a fractal dimension that exceeds the logical dimension, which is one way of defining fractals that we just mentioned before. More typically, authors treat them as a separate but related class of antenna. Antenna elements, as opposed to antenna arrays made from self-similar shapes, were first created by Nathan Cohen, then a professor at Boston University, starting in 1988. Cohen's efforts with a variety of fractal antenna designs were first published in 1995. Cohen's publication marks the inaugural scientific publication on fractal antennas. Fractal element antennas use the fractal structure as a virtual combination of capacitors and inductors. This makes the antenna so that it has many different resonances, which can be chosen and adjusted by choosing the proper fractal design. This complexity arises because the current on the structure has a complex arrangement caused by the inductance and self-capacitance. In general, although their effective electrical length is longer, the fractal element antennas are themselves physically smaller, again due to this reloading. Fractal element antennas are shrunken compared to conventional designs and do not need additional components, assuming the structure happens to have the desired resonant input impedance. The fractal dimension of a fractal antenna is a poor predictor of its performance in applications. Fractal antennas work well for a given application or set of applications. Computer search methods and antenna simulations are commonly used to identify which fractal antenna designs best meet the need of the application. Researchers have disputed that fractal antennas have superior performance. Best in 2003 observed that antenna geometry alone, fractal or otherwise, does not uniquely determine the electromagnetic properties of the small antenna. In 2011, Robert C. Hansen and Robert E. Collins reviewed many papers on fractal antennas and concluded that they offer no advantage over fat dipoles, loaded dipoles, or simple loops, that non-fractals are always better. Log periodics, a form of fractal antenna, have their electromagnetic characteristics determined by geometry via an open angle. Different and useful attribute of some fractal element antennas is their self-scaling aspect. In 1957, V.H. Rumsey presented results that angle-defined scaling was one of the underlying requirements to make antennas invariant, the number or range of frequencies. By Y. Mushiaki in Japan, starting in 1948, demonstrated similar results of frequency antennas having self-complementarity. It is believed that antennas had to be defined by angles for this to be true. In 1999, it was discovered that self-similarity was one of the underlying requirements to make antennas in frequency and bandwidth invariant. In other words, the self-similar aspect was the underlying requirement, along with origin symmetry for frequency independence. Angle-defined antennas are self-similar, but other self-similar antennas are frequency independent, although not angle-defined. Analysis based on Maxwell's equations shows fractal antennas offer a closed form and unique insight into a key aspect of electromagnetic phenomena, to wit, the invariance property of Maxwell's equations. This is now known as the Holfeld-Cohen-Rumsey principle, or HC. Mushiaki's work earlier on self-complementarity was shown to be limited to impedance expected from Babinet's principle, but not frequency invariant. In addition to their use as antennas, fractals also found application in other antenna system components, including loads, counterpoises, and ground planes. Fractal inductors and fractal tuned circuits, or fractal resonators, were also discovered and invented simultaneously with fractal element antennas. An emerging example of such is in metamaterials. A recent invention demonstrates using closed-packed fractal resonators to make the first wideband metamaterial invisibility cloak at microwave frequencies. Fractals can be used as counterpoises, loads, and ground planes and filters, all parts that can be integrated with antennas. They are considered parts of some antenna systems, as discussed in the context of fractal antennas. So that is a very interesting article in Wikipedia about fractal antennas. I just wanted to touch just very quickly on a couple of more types of fractals and point you towards some resources that discuss those, and also an Amazon fractal antenna that's actually out there for sale. Another type of fractal is called the Koch snowflake, which is generated from an equilateral triangle. The first stage is an equilateral triangle, and each successive stage is formed by adding outward bends to each side of the previous stage, making smaller equilateral triangles. The areas enclosed by the successive stages converge to 8/5 times the area of the original triangle, while the perimeters of the successive stages increase without bound. If you look at the picture, you just keep adding equilateral triangles, smaller and smaller ones, and it does resemble a snowflake. It's really an interesting figure. And there's an article in IEEE, I don't know if you have an IEEE account, but there is an article published in IEEE by Petkov, Kolev, and Bonev called Fractal Yagi Antenna. And in the abstract of this paper, it says a Yagi antenna with 3 fractal curve-shaped elements is proposed in their paper. The antenna performances are simulated and compared with these of typical Yagi antenna for the same frequency band. And fractal Yagi antenna features relatively small size and high gain. The return loss is experimentally measured. So that is a paper that's available out there for sign-in or purchase. So feel free to look that up on IEEE. Again, it's just entitled Fractal Yagi Antenna. Another type of fractal that's based off of triangles is called the Sierpinski triangle, which is also known as the Sierpinski gasket or Sierpinski sleeve. This is taking an equilateral triangle and it's subdivided recursively into smaller equilateral triangles that are removed. And so it appears as a very decorative pattern, but it can also be used for an antenna design. If you look on Amazon, there is a brand, SMAKN, fractal antenna of tree-shaped, multiband, high integration that looks like the Sierpinski gasket. And it lists on here for $49.99, and it says in the comments, someone asked what it was used for, and the answer was that it would be used for a antenna. So it says you can use it in any frequency band theoretically. So I'm not sure how useful it is, but you can certainly read the reviews. There's a couple of reviews out there. So there's not much information about how it's working or what people think of it, but I thought it was interesting that there's actually a $50 antenna that is a fractal antenna that's out there on Amazon. So I thought that was really pretty neat. So there's some information on fractal antennas. I hope you enjoyed this article, and I hope you enjoy exploring the world of fractals. It really is a fascinating universe, different shapes and designs, and I hope it provides some insight there for antenna design. This is KFI PDS, your net control for this session of the DA. Skynet. At this time, I'd like to return the net to Tom, KG5ICX. If you'll do a second round, see if we have some folks out to check in, and then you have my permission to turn the net after that for Was Up. So this is the KE5ICX from KF5CDS.
All right, thank you, Ms. Billy. And I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of people that are over on YouTube. That would be Philip, K5KOB, Will's Point, he's always here, and KG5OMR, Marcia, over in Dallas. So I've got you two checked in. I'll take additional check-ins. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from.
Golf 5, Zulu Mike Golf.
Okay, we picked one up over on Echolink. I got KG5ZMG. That's Joe. I think he's in Dallas. I could be wrong, but I've got you checked in, Joe. We'll just move on to Chaz, KF5JHA. You are up for your segment of What's Up, KE5ICX.
I was corrected over on Echolink. I had to do the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States, Texas, Dallas County, then Mesquite. This is KF5JHH, as we call this segment of Skynet What's Up, because it's about what is going on astronomically over the next couple of weeks. Slide master, that would be Tom. Slide number 2, please. Today, on January the 28th, is the first quarter phase of the moon. I was out earlier and saw it through some clouds. So the current phase is the first quarter moon. On February the 4th, the moon is at apogee, which is a point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 406,476 kilometers. Full moon will occur on February the 5th. On February 13th is the third quarter phase of the moon. On February the 19th, the moon is at its perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 358,267 kilometers. Slide master, slide number 3, please. So we get to talk about a comet. Comet C2022 E3ZTF is now within the range of binoculars and in a week could be visible to the unaided eye, well, at least if you're away from the city lights. It was discovered back in March of 2022 at the Zwicky Transient Facility. Comet magnitude estimates are difficult to predict, but this comet has pretty much lived up to its predictions. Currently, it's an estimated magnitude of 5.5, and in, like I said, a week, it could be as bright as magnitude 5.0. The video portion of Skynet has a recent image and a couple of finder charts. Tomorrow morning, in the early morning, of course it's going to be cloudy, the comet is located in between the bowl of the Little Dipper and the handle of the Big Dipper, which is actually in the constellation of Draco the Dragon. Now, if you want to get more information, just search for the comet 2022 space E3, and you should be able to find lots more information. Slide master, slide number 4, please. On January 30th, the moon will occult the planet Mars. In other words, the moon will cover up the planet Mars. It'll go behind. Mars will go behind the moon, yeah. This event will be the best observed with a pair of binoculars or a telescope, but you could really observe it with your 2 eyes. At around 11:19 and 12 seconds p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon will cover up or occult Mars. And then a few minutes after midnight, at 12:03 and 10 seconds a.m. Central Standard Time, that would be on January the 31st, really, Mars will reappear from behind the moon. This will vary depending on where you are located in the Metroplex. The times that I've given you were calculated for Brookhaven campus of Dallas College. Wonder why that is. Slide master, slide number 5, please. I usually don't talk about outer members of our solar system, but on February the 11th, the planet Mercury will only be about 2 degrees away from the planet Pluto in the very low early morning east-southeastern sky. Now, only the largest amateur telescopes would be able to see the planet Pluto. Slide master, slide number 6, please. If you've never seen the planet Neptune through a telescope, then you could try it on February the 14th, Valentine's Day. The planet Venus and Neptune will only be about a half a degree apart in this very close conjunction in the western evening sky. Once again, a telescope will be needed to see Neptune. And slide master, slide number 7. On February the 18th, the moon will be around 6 degrees away from the planet Mercury in the very low east-southeastern morning sky. Binoculars may be needed to see both of them in the strong morning twilight. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 8, please. Once again, the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting will be held on Friday, February the 28th. And the meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas, and will also be held on Zoom. The featured speaker is John Kelly, and his topic is going to be about his time at NASA. And Saturday night public observing sessions have begun, but tonight was canceled because of clouds. Okay, slide master, slide number 9, please. Do any of you out there in Radio Land have a question or need a fill on any of the information? Or maybe you just have a general astronomy question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill. Okay, so as the moon waned at the beginning of January, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live. And until next time, actually I'll be doing another Skynet segment in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JHA, back to our net control. It's all yours, Billy, KF5PDS.
Thanks very much, Chaz. The next step is space exploration and space history. So at this time, the net over to Kelly, K5KTX. The net is yours from KF5CDS.
Hey, Billy, this is K5KTX. Good evening, everyone. Well, NASA's Lucy spacecraft will add another asteroid encounter to its 4 billion mile journey. On November 1st of 2023, Lucy will get a close-up view of a small main belt asteroid to conduct an engineering test of the spacecraft's innovative asteroid tracking navigation system. The Lucy mission is already breaking records by planning to visit 9 asteroids during its 12-year tour of the Jupiter Trojan asteroids, which orbit the Sun at the same distance as Jupiter. Originally, Lucy was not scheduled to get a close-up view of any asteroids until 2025, when it will fly by the main belt asteroid 52246 Donald Johanson. However, the Lucy team identified a small, as yet unnamed asteroid in the inner main belt, designated 1999 VD57, as a potential new and useful target for the Lucy spacecraft. Lucy team realized that by adding a small maneuver, the spacecraft would be able to get an even closer look at this asteroid. So, on January the 24th, the team officially added it to Lucy's tour as an engineering test of the spacecraft's pioneering terminal tracking system. This new system solves a long-standing problem for flyby missions. During a spacecraft's approach to an asteroid, it is quite difficult to determine exactly how far the spacecraft is from the asteroid and exactly which way to point the cameras. In the past, most flyby missions have accounted for this uncertainty by taking a lot of images of the region where the asteroid might be, meaning low efficiency and lots of images of blank space. Lucy will be the first flyby mission to employ this innovative and complex system to automatically track the asteroid during the encounter. This novel system will allow the team to take many more images of the target. Turns out that 1999 VD57 provides an excellent opportunity to validate this never-before-flown procedure. The geometry of this encounter, particularly the angle that the spacecraft approaches the asteroid relative to the Sun, is very similar to the mission's planned Trojan asteroid encounters. This allows the team to carry out a dress rehearsal under similar conditions well in advance of the spacecraft's main scientific targets. This asteroid was not identified as a target earlier because it is extremely small. In fact, 1999 VD57, estimated to be a mere 0.4 miles in size, will be the smallest main belt asteroid ever visited by a spacecraft. It is much more similar in size to the near-Earth asteroids visited by recent NASA missions OSIRIS-REx and DART than to previously visited main belt asteroids. The Lucy team will carry out a series of maneuvers starting in early May of this year to place the spacecraft on a trajectory that will pass approximately 280 miles from this small asteroid. In space history this week, starting with January the 22nd, back in 1968, assembled atop a Saturn 1B rocket, the Apollo Lunar Module, LM, had its first test flight. The mission, designated Apollo 5, launched to low Earth orbit for an 11-hour and 10-minute series of tests. Following nose cone jettison, the LM separated from its LM adapter to begin a series of burns designed to simulate lunar descent and abort scenarios. The nearly half-day mission was deemed a success, bringing NASA another step closer to landing humans on the moon. January the 24th, back in 1986, Voyager 2, the first human-made object to fly by Uranus, made its closest approach on this day in 1986 at a range of about 50,640 miles. During its journey, Voyager 2 discovered 10 new moons, including Ophelia and Cordelia, named after the William Shakespeare. Our one flyby so far yielded an amazing harvest of new information about this mysterious planet. This included reported wind speeds in the atmosphere of 450 miles per hour. Also on January the 24th, back in 2004, after nearly a 7-month-long journey, Mars exploration rover Opportunity landed on the red planet. Originally, scientists had planned that Opportunity would explore the Martian terrain for 90 days, but the rover ended up with an extended stay, and the mission lasted until February the 13th, 2019. In its time on Mars, Opportunity collected evidence that long ago the planet had conditions that could have supported microbial life. January the 27th, 1967, we lost 3 members of the NASA family in a flash fire during a ground test before the first planned Apollo mission. Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chapey were rehearsing for the planned launch on February the 21st when a fire swept through the command module. They died within seconds. In the aftermath of this tragedy, a thorough analysis and review of all aspects of the Apollo program was conducted. The Accident Review Board determined an electrical arc and an equipment bay started the fire, which engulfed the high-pressure, pure oxygen-filled capsule in seconds. The review and investigation led to major changes in the Apollo system design, operations, management, and procedures. These changes made the Apollo spacecraft safer and allowed for the successful completion of 6 missions to the surface of the moon and safe operations of the Apollo system until it was retired after the 1975 Apollo-Soyuz mission. One of the many changes in response to the tragedy was the creation of an independent Office of Flight Safety and a personal dedication to safety that still inspires all of the NASA family today. On this date, back in 1986, at 11:38 a.m. Eastern Time, Space Shuttle Challenger lifted off from Launch Complex 39B at Kennedy Space Center. The second shuttle launch of the year, mission STS-51L, was to deploy the second tracking and data relay satellite and featured the flight of the first teacher in space. A failure in the right solid rocket booster led to an explosion that destroyed the spacecraft 73 seconds after launch. The 7 crew members were all killed in the accident. The crew included mission specialist Ellison S. Onizuka, Ron McNair, and Judy Resnick, teacher in space participant Sharon Kristen McAuliffe, payload specialist Greg Jarvis, pilots Mike Smith, and Commander Dick Scobie. astronaut birthdays this past week, starting on January the 22nd, 1955. Thomas David Jones, who was part of Space Shuttle missions STS-59, 68, 80, and 98. On January the 23rd, we had quite a few astronauts born on that day. So I think if you're born on January the 23rd, you have a good chance of being selected. Starting with 1930, William Pogue, who was on Skylab 4. 1943, Robert Cabana, who was on Space Shuttle missions STS-41, 53, 65, and 88. January 23rd, 1973, Kjell Lindgren, who was part of Expedition 4445, and last year he flew on the SpaceX Crew 4 as part of Expedition 67 and 68. And then also on January 23rd, 1974, Jack Fisher, who was a member of the Expedition 51-52 crew. Rounding out the week of astronaut birthdays, January the 24th, 1952, William Reddy, Space Shuttle missions STS-42, 51, and 79. January the 26th, 1952, Mario Ronco Jr., Space Shuttle missions STS-44, 54, and 77. And then today's birthdays, January 28th, 1939, John Fabian, Space Shuttle missions STS-7 and STS-51G. And in 1950, David Hilmers, Space Shuttle missions STS-51J, 26, 36, and 42. And that's all I've got this evening. Back to you, Billy. This is K5 KTX.
Thank you very much, Kelly. This is a rough week of remembrance. February 1st is coming up, I believe, the 20th anniversary. This is a solemn time for NASA, a hard week to get through. Remembering all things to remember them. We all will. So this is KF5 PDS, Billy, for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. So at this time, I will return the net to Chaz. KF5 to AK, the net is yours. KF5 PDS.
Thank you, Billy. Miss Carolyn's... Oh, this is slide number 11, please. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019 with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in North Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. And in her honor, we have continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Taurus the Bull. Taurus is the 17th largest constellation in the sky, occupying an area of 797 square degrees. Its name means bull in Latin. The constellation is symbolized by the bull's head. It is one of the oldest constellations. Its history dates back to the Bronze Age. Taurus is one of the 12 constellations of the zodiac. Actually, to tell you the truth, there's 13 constellations in the zodiac. Ophiuchus hasn't been included in a lot of publications, but we include it. It was first cataloged by the Greek astronomer Ptolemy in the 2nd century. In Greek mythology, the constellation is associated with Zeus, who transformed himself into a bull to get close to Europa in order to abduct her. How pleasant. Sidemaster, slide number 12, please. And of course, this is what all of you have been waiting since 9 o'clock for, and that's the jokes of the week. All right, here we go. Why do bulls wear bells? I know JJ can answer this on Echo Link really quickly. Because their horns don't work. What's worse than a bull in a china shop? A hedgehog in a balloon factory. I used to be a bull rider, and I was doing really well. Until a guy from Walmart came out and unplugged the electricity. Where do mechanical bulls come from? They're raised on a wrench. Not a ranch, but a wrench. If I have to explain them, they're not any good. I used to work, okay, let's see now. I used to work on a ranch that kept cows and bulls. But the pay was utterly terrible. What do you call a bull when it goes through a door? Adorable. And here's the last one in the sequence. What do you call four bullfighters standing in quicksand? Cuatro cinco. And this is KF5JJ. This is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 13, please. Aldebaran is the brightest star in Taurus and long considered to be one of the bull's eyes. The name Aldebaran is derived from the Arabic word that means the follower, supposedly from the fact that the star follows the Pleiades across the sky. Aldebaran is an orange giant star, type K5, with a diameter of 44 times that of the Sun. It is about 65 light years in distance and is 150 times more luminous than our Sun. Aldebaran is the brightest star, which can be occulted by the moon, and such occultations have been observed since ancient times. Slide Masters, slide number 14, please. The Pleiades star cluster, also known as M45, is also known as the Seven Sisters. The Seven Sisters name came from the mythological account of the seven daughters of Atlas who were placed in the heavens to overcome their grief over the fate of their father, who had to support the world on his shoulders. Indeed, the brightest stars in the cluster are named after the Seven Sisters and their father Atlas and their mother. The Pleiades is one of the special class of objects that looks better in binoculars than in most telescopes. And of course, the Pleiades are easily visible with no optical aid at all. The nebulosity surrounding stars is easily visible, usually with a larger instrument at lower power. And I just want to let you know, I've seen the Pleiades about 3 miles outside of Dallas. There wasn't a lot of street lights involved, but you can see it when it's overhead, easily from inside the city. Slide Master, slide number 15. The Hyades is also known as Melantrope 25. The Hyades is in mythology were the half-sisters of the Pleiades, the daughters of Atlas and Aretha. The stars of the Hyades were often associated with rainy and stormy weather in ancient times. The name itself is derived from the Greek word meaning to rain. Like the Pleiades, the Hyades looks much better through binoculars than they do through most telescopes. Even more than the Pleiades because they span a much larger area of the sky. And like the Pleiades, they are easily made out with the unaided eye. The cluster and Aldebaran forming the distinctive V shape that marks the face of the bull. Aldebaran is not a member of the Hyades, but is actually a foreground object at about 65 light years away. The Hyades are over twice as far away at 151 light years away. Slide Master, slide number 16, please. M1, the first object in the famous Messier catalog, is the one I want to talk about next. M1 is also known as the Crab Nebula, a remnant of a supernova explosion from July 4th, 1054 AD. So almost 1,000 years have passed since the supernova explosion. The Crab Nebula is easily seen in binoculars and small telescopes. M1 is easily found on a line between Alness and Zeta Tauri, the tip of the bull's other horn. M1 lies on this line just 1 degree from Zeta. Binoculars simply show a small fuzzy patch, but even in a small telescope of 3 inches or so, the nebula could show some basic lumpiness in the oval structure. Of course, more details are visible in much larger telescopes. Slide number 17, please. NGC 1647, the Pirate Moon Cluster. Dave Hutchinson describes it as a nice open cluster of about 80 stars. It is easy to find since it's about 3 degrees away from Aldebaran, between the bull's horns, and it stands out well in binoculars or a finder scope. It fills the lowest power in a Dynamax 8 telescope at 40 power. It also reminds of looking at a beehive cluster in Cancer at 20 power. There is a nice bright pair of stars at the southern edge of the cluster, with a fainter member of the pair having a distinct reddish-orange color. These 2 stars are probably foreground objects since they are brighter than the rest of the cluster stars. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Masters, slide number 18. There are a few more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Taurus. I've just given you a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League, at last count, has 75 different observing programs, most of which have around 100 objects. And if you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pin in about a year from the Astronomical League. Slide Master, slide number 19, and that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Taurus the Bull. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Ernest Harwell for their research and words on the deep sky objects that I've used, borrow, and steal for every Skynet. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Now next time I'll take a look at 2 constellations, Selim the Chisel and Columba the Dove. And this is KF5JHA sending it back to our net control. KF5PDS Billy, it's all yours. 73, everyone.
Thanks very much, Chaz. This is KF5PDS Billy, your net control for this session. CARC Skynet. All right, next up is Space Launches of the Week. This time I'll turn the net over to Tom. Tom, if you would not mind doing a quick check-in round, any folks on frequency that would like to check in, and then if you would just give us maybe some highlights. We're getting close to time, and we still have another segment to cover, so if you want highlights on space launches, that would be great. So this is the ICX from KF5PDS.
Very good. Yeah, I'll keep an eye on time here. So this is KE5ICX. I'll go ahead and take additional check-ins before I begin my segment. If you'd like to join us, please come now with your call sign, phonetically your name, where you're transmitting from.
Kilo India 5, uniform, Juliet, Dustin, in Dallas.
Okay, we picked up one more, KF5UUJ, that's Dustin in Dallas. Have you checked in? All right, well, let's see here. We have coming up on January 29th a Starlink 2-6 launch on a Falcon 9. This will be from SLC-4E at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. This mission will deploy Starlink satellites into a high inclination orbit inclined at 70 degrees to the equator. First stage booster will land on a drone ship in the Pacific Ocean. Starlink 5-3 from Launch Complex 39A. That will be on January 31st, Kennedy Space Center. It will be the 3rd launch in the new orbital shell for SpaceX second generation Starlink constellation called Starlink Gen 2. First stage booster will land on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. February 5th, Amazonia Nexus will launch from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Base in Florida. The communications satellite for the Spanish company His PASSAT, Amazonias Nexus, will provide broadband connectivity to aircraft, ships, and other mobile users across the Americas. Then we will have sometime in February the SSLV launch from Satish Dhawan Space Center in Sriharikota, India. This will be a launch of its second orbital test flight following the failed inaugural launch attempt in 2022. February 9th will be a Soyuz Progress 83P launch from Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. The Russian rocket will launch the 83rd Progress delivery ship to the International Space Station. And I'll do one more. February 11th, 12th, there will be a launch from the Launch Pad 2 at Takashima Space Center in Japan. Japanese H-3 rocket will launch on its first test flight with the Advanced Land Observing Satellite 3, or ALOS 3, Earth Observation Satellite for the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. ALOS 3, also named Diachi 3, will capture high-resolution, wide-swath images of the world's land surfaces. And I'm going to go ahead and end it there. You can get all this information at spaceflightnow.com/launch schedule. That's the best one. It'll give you the latest and greatest. It's updated every couple of days. So back to you, Miss Billy, KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. And one that particularly caught my list was February 26th. There's going to be another Crew Dragon Falcon 9 launch. It's going to be at 2:07 a.m. Eastern Time. It's going to be SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. They're going to launch Crew Dragon spacecraft on the 9th flight with astronauts. So that's going to be exciting to see another crew go up. And then the Crew Dragon will return to us down at sea. So always watch for those. Crew Dragon, those are really great. Next up is a recent astronomical discovery. So this time I'm going to turn the net over to Brenda, WV5OZL. The net is yours from KF5TDS.
Thanks, Billy. This is WV5OZL. My name is Brenda. This article is entitled NASA's Fermi Detects First Gamma Ray Eclipses from Spider Star Systems. Scientists have discovered the first gamma ray eclipses from a special type of binary star system using data from NASA's Fermi Gamma Ray Space Telescope. These so-called spider systems each contain a pulsar, the superdense, rapidly rotating remains of a star that exploded in a supernova that slowly erodes its companion. An international team of scientists scoured over a decade of Fermi observations to find 7 spiders that undergo these eclipses, which occur when the low-mass companion star passes in front of the pulsar from our point of view. The data allowed them to calculate how the systems tilt relative to our line of sight and other information. One of the most important goals for studying spiders is to try and measure the masses of the pulsars, said Colin Clark, an astrophysicist at the Max Planck Institute for Gravitational Physics in Hanover, Germany, who led the work. Pulsars are basically balls of the densest matter we can measure. The maximum mass they can reach constrains the physics within these extreme environments, which can't be replicated on Earth. Spider systems develop because one star in a binary evolves more swiftly than its partner. When the more massive star goes supernova, it leaves behind a pulsar. This stellar remnant emits beams of multi-wavelength light, including gamma rays, that sweep in and out of our view, creating pulses so regular they rival the precision of atomic clocks. Early on, a spider pulsar feeds off its companion by siphoning away a stream of gas. As the system evolves, the feeding stops as the pulsar begins to spin more rapidly, generating particle outflows and radiation that superheat the companion's facing side and eroded. Scientists divide spider systems into two types named after spider species whose females sometimes eat their smaller mates. Black widows contain companions with less than 5% of the sun's mass. Redback systems host bigger companions, both in size and mass, weighing between 10 and 50% of the sun. Before Fermi, we only knew of a handful of pulsars that emitted gamma rays, says Elizabeth Hayes, the Fermi Project scientist at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland. After over a decade of observations, the mission has identified over 300 and collected a long, nearly uninterrupted data set that allows the community to do trailblazing science. Researchers can calculate the masses of spider systems by measuring their orbital motions. Visible light observations can measure how quickly the companion is traveling, while radio measurements reveal the pulsar's speed. However, these rely on motion towards and away from us. For a nearly face-on system, such changes are slight and potentially confusing. The same signals could also be produced by a smaller, slower orbiting system that's seen from the side. Knowing the system's tilt relative to our line of sight is vital for measuring mass. The tilt's angle is normally measured using visible light, but these measurements come with some potential complications. As the companion orbits the pulsar, its superheated side comes in and out of view, creating a fluctuation in visible light that depends on the tilt. However, astronomers are still learning about the superheating process, and models with different heating patterns sometimes predict different pulsar masses. Gamma rays, however, are only generated by the pulsar and have so much energy that they travel in a straight line, unaffected by debris unless blocked by the companion. If gamma rays disappear from the data set of a spider system, scientists can infer that the companion eclipsed the pulsar. From there, they can calculate the system's tilt into our sight line, the star's velocities, and the pulsar's mass. PSR B1957 plus 20, or B1957 for short, was first known Black Widow, discovered in 1988. Earlier models for this system, built from visible light observations, determined that it was tipped about 65 degrees into our line of sight, and the pulsar's mass was 2.4 times the sun's. That would make B1957 the heaviest known pulsar, straddling the theoretical mass limit between the pulsar and black hole. By looking at the Fermi data, Clark and his team found 15 missing gamma ray photons. The timing on the gamma ray pulses from these objects is so dependable that 15 missing photons over a decade is significant enough that the team could determine the system is eclipsing. Then they calculated that the binary is inclined 84 degrees and the pulsar weighs only 1.8 times as much as the sun. There's a quest to find massive pulsars, and these spider systems are thought to be one of the best ways to find them, says Matthew Kerr, co-author of the new paper, research physicist at U.S. Naval Research Laboratory in Washington. They've undergone a very extreme process of mass transfer from the companion star to the pulsar. Once we really get these models fine-tuned, we'll know for sure whether these spider systems are more massive than the rest of the pulsar population. That's it. This is from ScienceDaily.com. Back to net, WB5OZL.
Thanks very much, Brenda. All right, we're getting close to the end, so I just wanted to quickly throw out for visible satellite passages, you can use the website www.heavens-above.com website to find out what's in orbit and where to look for flyovers. It does let you put in your city and the times and everything for your location. Next step is our 73 rounds. So at this time, are there any check-in stations with any remarks or questions?
Kilo India 5, Kilo Whiskey Golf, cruise in Arlington, just checking in.
Tom, if you will get that checked in, and if you'll go ahead and put a call out for final check-in.
I'm completely operational, and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net.
KE5ICX from KFI CDS.
Very good. Now do exactly that, Billy. I've got KI5KWG cruise over in Arlington. I have you checked in. Any final check-ins? This will be last call for Skynet. If you'd like to join us, please come with your call sign, phonetically your name, where you're transmitting from. Okay, well, cruise will be our last check-in. There were 27, Miss Billy. Back to you, KE5ICX.
Copy that. So tonight we had 20 hams participating on the air. So thank you to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. So until next Saturday night, this is KF5 TDS, Billy. I'll be closing the net at 22:31 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 7-3, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovery. And remember, following Skynet is the Afterglow Movie Net, which I believe will be starting in about 5 minutes. So take a break, come back, and enjoy the Afterglow Movie Net. 7-3, everybody.
And thank you, Miss Billy, for an excellent net. Always interesting. I love your topics. Always interesting, different, and very informative. This is KE5ICX. We will take a 5-minute break. Come back in 5 minutes, and we'll begin with our final net of the evening, which is the Afterglow Movie Net. Tonight's movie, Apollo 13 from 1996. Come back in 5. This is KE5ICX. Clear until then. about 5 minutes, so come on back to the radio, and we will begin our discussion on the movie Apollo 13 from, I made a mistake, I thought it was 1996, actually 1995, but you get the picture, it was a while ago. So rather than reading you really all the particulars from the mission, which ended up being in the movie, I'm going to instead read to you a little bit about the film itself as depicted and described in Wikipedia. And this is KE5ICX. This is what it says. It says Apollo 13 is a 1995 American space docudrama film directed by Ron Howard, starring Tom Hanks, Kevin Bacon, Bill Paxton, Ed Harris, and Gary Sinise. The screenplay was by William Broyles Jr. and Al Reinhardt, dramatizing the aborted 1970 Apollo 13 lunar mission, and is an adaptation of the 1994 book Lost Moon, The Perilous Voyage of Apollo 13, by astronaut Jim Lovell and Jeffrey Kluger. The film depicts astronauts Lovell, Jack Swigert, and Fred Hayes aboard Apollo 13 in America's fifth crewed mission to the moon, which was intended to be the third to land. En route, an onboard explosion deprives their spacecraft of much of its oxygen supply and electrical power, which forces NASA's flight controllers to abort the moon landing mission and improvise scientific and mechanical solutions to get the three astronauts to Earth safely. Howard went into great lengths to create a technically accurate movie, employing NASA's assistance in astronaut and flight controller training for his cast and obtaining permission to film scenes aboard reduced gravity aircraft for realistic depiction of the weightlessness experienced by astronauts in space. Released to cinemas in the United States on June 30th, 1995, Apollo 13 received critical acclaim and was nominated for 9 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, winning for Best Film Editing and Best Sound. The film also won the Screen Actors Guild Award for Outstanding Performance by a Cast in a Motion Picture, as well as 2 British Academy Film Awards. In total, the film grossed over $355 million worldwide during its theatrical releases. All right, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and first off, we will take check-in, and then after that, we will discuss the plot. What did you think about Apollo 13, the film, and maybe how it stacked up against Apollo 13, the mission? By a second round, talking about the characterization and acting in the film, and then the third, which would be my favorite on this whole thing, the technical aspects of the film and how they rank and stack up with the real thing, as well as music and anything else that you might want to discuss. Maybe something that you missed on the first 2 rounds, or something that you heard and you thought, you know, I need to say this before we go off, before we finish the net. So this is what we'll do. I'll go ahead and take check-ins. Please come with your call sign, phonetically, your name, and did you see Apollo 13, the film? Now, if you haven't seen the film for whatever reason, and I can't imagine this group not having seen it, but if you haven't, that's okay. We can talk about the mission, or you can actually make comments about, well, would you want to see this film? So just because you may not have seen the film does not mean that you cannot participate. You certainly can. So here we go. Please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, and did you see Apollo 13, the film from 1995?
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony and Dallas. Oh yes, many times. And I'd like to sneak in a quick announcement at your convenience.
November Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth, and I've probably seen this movie about 100 times.
November 8th, Whiskey Romeo.
N8WWR, Romy. I'm in Grapevine. I saw it one time, circa around the year 2000. N8WWR.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. This is Brenda DeSoto. Yes, I've seen this movie. I haven't seen it 100 times yet, but I'm working on it. I've seen it several times.
All right, let me go ahead and get those check-ins. They're a little slow again tonight, but that's okay. I think people are on the traffic net. I got NT5TM, Tony in Dallas. Yep, she saw the film. NV5F, Virginia in Fort Worth. Yep, she saw the film. NAWWR, Romy. He's over in Grapevine, and yes, he saw the movie in 2000. It's still the same movie. They didn't change the ending, although, you know, if it were Steven Spielberg or George Lucas, they would have changed it. Jim Lovell would have shot first. WB50ZL, Miss Brenda DeSoto, yes, she's seen the movie. I'll take additional check-ins, and then I'll give Tony the horn. So anybody else like to join us, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, and did you see Apollo 13 from 1995?
Kilo Indigo 5, Zulu Kilo Lima. My name is Brian. I'm in North Dallas, and yes, I saw it in 2000.
Kilo 5, Mike, Charlie Delta, Cody in Dallas. Saw it once a long time ago.
Kilo Bravo 9, 0 Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth. Yes, I've seen this film.
Okay, there was a double, so I'm going to miss one person out of this, but I did get 3 out of the 4. I got KI5ZKL, that's Brian in North Dallas. Yeah, he saw the movie back in 2000. K5MCD, Cody in Dallas, he saw the film. KB5SOK, Sean in Fort Worth, yes, he saw the film. Additional check-ins, please.
Kilo India 5, Kilo Whiskey Golf, Cruise in Arlington. I believe I was your double.
And KI5KWG, Cruise in Arlington. I'm not even going to ask you if you've seen the film. I know you've probably seen this movie 3,000 times like me, so I'm just going to put you down as a yes. Anyone else before we go to announcements?
Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy. Got the 2-disc anniversary edition PDF.
Very good. I got KFI PDS, Miss Billy, and yes, she saw the film as well. Anyone else on Echolink? I've got a few people there. If you're on Echolink, I forgot to ask Echolink. I do that sometimes on this particular net. Anyone on Echolink would like to join, please come now. Okay, well, we'll call that good. So I'm going to go to the top of the list. We will go down in order tonight. So, Tony, since you're at the top of the list and you had an announcement, go ahead with your announcement and see if you need any fills. And then after that, tell us what you thought about the plot for Apollo 13 from 1995. Go ahead, Tony.
Tom. This is a great crowd. We don't normally do announcements on this net, but really this is just so perfect. I realized to my shock and surprise when I was giving announcements during Skynet that we have a surprise net coming up this Monday. Now, this is not as difficult a task as you might think because I have a lot of material left over from the last surprise net. JJN5IMS suggested we play a game of Name That Movie. You might have a quote, a situation, a plot summary, a description. We can't sing. We can talk about it of a musical cue. And then you have a multiple choice set of answers for what movie that was. And this is a game we play just like Jeopardy on the Air or any other game. We compete for mainly pride and also really just for fun. The key thing for a net like Name That Movie is we have to have a lot of movies to name. Here's how a sample clue goes. The world's grumpiest old man pulls out the most ridiculously oversized pistol ever made and says, "Do you feel lucky, punk?" What movie is this? A. Debbie Harry. B. Harry's Dandruff. C. Dirty Harry. D. A History of Punk Pistols. They don't all have to be as punny as that, but you get the idea. Now, I've got clues written by Tom, and clues written by Aaron, and clues written by our original topic author, JJN5IMS. But if you have any clues you'd like to suggest, and I just gave you, a good example, you give a description and then some choices, please get in touch with me or send me an email, November Tango 5 Tango Mike at w5fc.org, NT5TM at whiskey5friedchicken.org. This is the movie crowd. I'd love to have some fresh clues to include in Monday night's net. I think it will all be fun, all be more fun, if we all chip in things that I don't know the answers to already. Now, of course, you're honor-bound not to answer your own question, but we've never in all the years of surprise nets had a problem with people doing that. I know it won't happen this time. We're pretty good about that as hands. So if you want to submit some questions and answer choices for Name That Movie, again, please email me, nt5tm at w5fc.org. Does anyone have any questions? Do you need any fills? This is the movie crowd. None of us in ham radio are going to be better than we are here. So if you have any questions, please let me know right now. Okay, well, again, Tom, thank you for the opportunity. This is the Movie Lovers Net, and I know that movies are going to be our topic this Monday because that's what we've got. So I hope we have some good surprises and good participation, and I know we're going to have some good fun. So about the plot of Apollo 13, this is a very tightly plotted movie. They try to get to the ticking clock as quickly as they can, but with due respect for the fact that mass media typically loses excitement for science and space flight rather easily. I'll touch on this more in characterization, but they do a great job of using Jim Lovell's mom to stand in for the public and asking these, sort of questions like, why isn't he on TV? The plot is, of course, heavily fictionalized. Well, I don't know, heavily is not the right word. It is definitely full of elements of dramatic license. How many flight directors did NASA employ at this time? You can't tell from the movie. People had thought a lot about using the lunar module as a lifeboat. They'd come up with a rough idea of how to make a carbon monoxide scrubber filter capsule adapter gizmo. You don't see the fact that they'd roughed that out. There was a lot of work done ahead of time on possible emergency return trajectories, where the burns would have to go, so that they already kind of knew the rough elements of how this sort of abort would work. not things we see in the movie. Of course, that's because this is a movie. If you want to hear about all that wonderful background, search for Apollo Flight Journal for Apollo 13. The Apollo 13 Flight Journal is a wonderful resource with links to all sorts of things, like how they really made the battery amps work out. You can't tell a good story that way. Movies are a different form of art than compiling an artful, well, a well-supported flight transcript. So, will I miss all the other flight directors, and they didn't really tell the story of the battery amps correctly, and I kind of sometimes worry the movie understated just the suffering of the endless hours of the cold and dark and trying to sleep and being alone. They probably did as much of that as they could and not have people actually leave the movie because they imagined they were freezing. So I think the plot was a pretty good compromise between documentary realism and the actual need to keep butts in seats in the theater. They told no lies, but they simplified a lot. I'm still pretty satisfied. NT5TM. Hey, Tom, I know I talk a long time. Are you out there? K85ICX from NT5TM.
Yeah, sorry, Tony. I had a bunch of peanuts I was eating, so I was just clearing my palate. So thank you very much, and thank you for the announcements. And yeah, I've got some comments based on what you just said as well. So I'll save mine towards the end. So next up is Virginia, ND5F, Virginia. She's over in Fort Worth, by the way. Virginia, you've seen this movie a few million times. What did you think about the plot for Apollo 13 from 1995?
85 ICX in the net. This is Virginia, NB5F. Well, I have a degree in film. I actually lived in Los Angeles and was working in the entertainment industry when I saw this movie. I remember my friend and I had gone to see Pocahontas, Disney's Pocahontas. I was actually working on a video game tie-in for Pocahontas at the time and was interested in seeing it, and after we saw it, we were both kind of like, that was okay. You want to see? And I was like, sure. He said, I want to see Apollo 13, and I said, that sounds great. So we went to see Apollo 13. That totally saved the night. Apollo 13 is an excellent adaptation, and that's what you have to do when you make a film, even of a true story. You have to give it an arc. You have to sort of impose a plot onto the kind of stream of consciousness of events that took days and days and days, and even in the weeks leading up to the event. And I think they did a really good job of that, of juxtaposing what the astronauts were going through versus what the flight director was going through versus what and the mission control team and all those guys coming up with all those solutions on the ground. And they really did do that. They called the guy who made the part, They called the guy who wrote the code. They called the guy who invented the circuit, and they had those people really, as present as possible. And I think they did a really good job of conveying that. As I understand it, in reference to what Tony said, a specific mission did have a single flight director, and Gene Kranz was the single flight director of Apollo 13. So I think that was truthful. I recently listened to his book on audio, and it was very good. And he was the flight director for Apollo 13. And I think they did a good job of telling his story and showing what he was going through and showing what the wives of the astronauts were going through, and I do think the device of having Jim Lovell's mother in there and having him telling the story of landing on the moon to his son, a lot of those things in the plot of a movie will condense events, condense people's ages. I don't know how close to factual the specific ages of the children were to when when this actually happened. I haven't done that much specific research on it, but there are things that are obviously adapted. It's kind of like adapting a book. You can't put every page of a book on the screen, or the movie would just be too long, and it would get too monotonous. So I think they heightened the drama between the astronauts in the whole idea of Jack Swigert replacing golly, I've seen the movie so many times and I'm tired and it's late. But that happening and bringing those characters together that were on the ground with the ones in space. I mean, I can't really say anything bad about this movie. I really think that the actors did a good job of portraying these people. I've listened to the recordings of this online, and they're amazingly not as dramatic as the movie makes everything. I've actually listened to that moment, Houston, we've had a problem, and they're all so calm, and there's so little drama that, yeah, you have to add that for a movie. But like I said, and the part with where Marilyn Lovell loses her wedding ring, she said that actually did happen. That's not a plot device. And I've just loved this movie since day one, and I think that for what they had to do, which was make compact a very long, detailed story, 1,000 things having to happen in order into a very good movie, I think they did an excellent job, and I will stop talking now. K5ICX, NV5F.
Thank you, Virginia. And yeah, I agree with you completely. Some of the comments I was going to make, but I've got others. So next up is and to look and see. I got N8WWR. That would be Romy. Romy, you saw the film once in 2000. What do you remember about it? Did you like it? Do you remember anything about the script that, or story that struck you as interesting or different, or whatever you would like to say from KE5ICX?
Oh, good evening, Tom, and the rest of the net. N8WWR, Romy, up here in Grapevine, west side of the airport. And yeah, I saw it once around the year 2000, and I'm glad I'm not the only one that saw it once and about the same time. I'm probably going to have the worst memory out of everyone. I have a terrible memory. During TechNet, I do know that the line, or I was almost 100% certain that Houston, we have a problem, was from Apollo 13, so I do recall that much. And I believe it's a Ron Howard film. I think I want to say that. I recall liking it wholeheartedly. I remember watching it on Stars. I think it was on the Stars Network where I watched it on. I recall that. Reset. Back in '95, when it first came out, I was a dishwasher at Arby's. I was like 16 years old. And I was training a kid to replace I was moving up in the world to the cash register, and I was training a kid to take over the dishwashing job. And he had apparently seen it in the theater, and he just kept giving the Houston, we have a problem line over and over again. This kid Curtis, how I remember that name, I don't know, how I just pulled it out of my head. But I do recall that. Yeah, making a rare appearance here tonight. The wife has a guest who's an ex-coworker from Cleveland who lives in another part of the country as well, and she's She crashed here last night and tonight, so they're out there doing their thing, and I'm in here playing radio. I wanted to say hi to Cruz over there. I saw a Facebook post of his about half a year ago or so, and it was kind of cryptic, but when I read it completely, I think it was on one of the ham radio pages, I knew exactly he was talking about this net, so it was really cool story there. Sorry I don't have a whole lot to add there, Tom. I know I suck. Back to you, NAW Bear.
Oh, it's okay, Romy. I just couldn't believe that you'd only seen the movie once. It's like, you know, the holy grail for this net. This is in the top 5 must-see movies for this net, and we did watch it previously. I guess it was about 2.5 years ago we watched it, but everybody has seen this movie a gazillion million times, so I can almost remember the lines. Well, of course you do anyway, because some of the lines are directly from the dialogue from the recordings from the actual mission, so that helps. Okay, next up is WB5OZL, Miss Brenda. Your thoughts on the plot for Apollo 13 from KE5ICX.
This is WB5OZL. Well, needless to say, I love this movie. It is one of my all-time favorites, and I've seen it a number of times. I'm sure I'm going to see it more times in the future. They really made it real. You know, you just felt like you were there in the spaceship with them, or, you know, there at the party with them. And it's a real masterpiece, and they captured so much of the emotions of what was going on, their excitement at going to the moon, or being bumped and not getting to go, and of course the trauma of the explosion, and then the euphoria at getting home safely. You couldn't make up a better story than this if you tried. It's just made for a movie. But they got the interactions of everybody down pretty well, and so it wasn't just a dry documentary about this space flight. It was a wonderful human drama about their hopes and dreams and disappointments and interactions, and it makes for a very, very good story. All right, back to net, WB5OZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda. Next up is Brian, KI5ZKL. Brian, your thoughts on the plot for Apollo 13 from KE5ICX.
KI5ZKL. I watched it, and one of the scariest things is I hate heights, so just having the astronauts in that tight, confined space for days on end would have driven me nuts. But I do like the fact that it reflects on engineering and coming up with a solution to a problem, and there is no stop. You just figure it out and go on.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I guess you're done. If you're done, just go ahead and complete with your call sign, and then I'll know you're...
KI5ZKL.
So things and applause, because you might have something else to say. So are you done?
KI5ZKL 73.
Okay. Okay, no problem. Don't go away. We've got other rounds here. So unless you fall asleep or something, which happens, I've fallen asleep in my own net. Ask around. Okay, next is Cody, K5MCD. Cody, your thoughts on the plot for Apollo 13?
Well, I suppose the plot was kind of provided for them. I remember going into the film thinking that it would be hard to buy Hanks' level, but it actually ended up being difficult for me to buy Ed Harris as Gene Kranz. I do recall enjoying Gary Sinise trying to work out what to do. While I understand that everything was quite compressed, for a film audience, I'm all for anything that romanticizes an era where NASA really led the way, kind of before they started to deviate a little bit and take some shortcuts in the 80s or what have you. K5NCD, back to that.
Okie dokie, thank you, Cody. Let's see, next would normally be Sean, KB5SOK. He had some radio repeater type problems. I'll just go ahead and ask him if he's out there and he may have resolved that problem to see if he can check in. Otherwise, he said that he probably cannot participate. He's one of our favorites, but let me see. Sean, KB5SOK, were you able to resolve your radio problem? All right, I suspected that. Well, we'll miss you, Sean. You always got great comments for this net. So we'll move on to KI5KWG. That would be Cruz over in Arlington. Cruz, I just assumed you've seen this movie. Have you seen this movie, and what did you think about the plot?
KI5KWG. Of course, I've seen the film several times. I remember the network broadcast of the original. As for the plot, I thought that was kind of an interesting question here. In fact, that we have a plot for a nonfiction story. But sometimes life works that way, and it was a very good story. I mentioned a few weeks ago when we were doing Maroon that NASA didn't like the Maroon script, so decided to write their own 4 months later. Greatly improved story. And so, yes, I like the film very much. I like the story even better, the real one. There were a few things I noted here. I believe it was Tony pointing out that there was nothing really made up, any lies being told, except I thought maybe the mid-course correction scene, like has been mentioned by others. I listen to the tapes and read the transcripts, and they were just quiet as they could be and calm as they could be during that mid-course correction, and it wasn't firing all over the place. They just nailed it on their first try and first and only try. So that was a pretty cool story that they didn't really have time to tell, which I like very much. My father watched this launch. Didn't take me with him, but he got to actually see the F-13 go up, and I saw it while it was being stacked in the vertical assembly building. I had another comment. Oh, yeah, I believe, and I wanted to go back, but I didn't have time this week to look at, listen to the mission audio of the launch. But I believe the public affairs officer mentions that it's the largest crowd ever gathered for a launch at that time. I don't know if that record ever got beat, and yet the networks canceled the live broadcast from inside the spacecraft. And I remember that night being ready to sit down in front of the TV and finding out it wasn't on when I guess it was Walter Cronkite had promised us. So, but Of course, I love the story and love the movie. I thought that was it was all really well done. That's what I've got on the plot. KI5 KWG. Back to net.
All right, very good. Thank you, Cruz. I got some comments on that, too. Let's see here. We'll go to Billy at CAF5 PDS. Billy, over in Sherman. And on Echolink, your thoughts on the plot for Apollo 13 from 1995 from KE5I6.
I absolutely love this film. I'm always amazed and impressed when writers and screenwriters and directors and folks can take such a wealth of information. There's so many different angles you can approach the material, and they're able to edit it down into a story. You have different directors and screenwriters tell this story angles you want to focus on. And I think, Ron Howard always does a great job on bringing out the people. This is a different kind of story because this is, based in real life with real people, and being able to tell that accurately. Of course, AF has pointed out there's dramatic license taken in order to keep the story moving for the audience, but it's even harder, I think, to do a movie that's grounded in real life, in a real situation. There are certain things you can't make up certain details because people check those, and so it's like you have to maintain a level of accuracy and continuity and exhaustive research to be able to tell a story like this. But Ron Howard always does a beautiful job of bringing out the human and the human side of the story as well as I think he does a great job of going in, and you see the families, and gathering around the TV to watch Neil Armstrong, and they really the period, all the period stuff right, and the recreations of all of and everything, and the interiors of the home, that it really puts you in, and you're just absorbed during the calm parts where they're explaining things. It holds your attention. There's at no time does it ever drop my focus, or do I ever lose interest. I'm interested from the start, from the main rat-a-tat of the snare to the final swelling of the music through the end. I watched the whole way. It is such a moving story. It's survival and perseverance comes through to me on it. And portrayal of all the characters, which we'll get into in the next round. I just love this story, and I did have the pleasure of meeting Hayes last summer at Moon Day, and it was this presence of someone. Astronauts are always fascinating folks to talk to, and their energy is so, infectious that you just carry that energy. My list. It's one we'll go to again and again. Never tire of watching this film. With that, I'll return it to you.
All right, thank you, Billy. By the way, because the Echolink uses a box, you might want to increase your mic just a little bit. You were fine on the previous net and net control, Tonight, on this net, it's just not quite holding it, at least at the very end, so you may want to just boost your mic up just a little bit to hold the repeater. But it was only the last, about 10 seconds that we lost you, but I noticed that it was starting to fade a little bit, which is kind of interesting. That never happens with you. So, at any rate, thanks for those comments. Let's see. I'll go ahead and ask if anybody else would like to join us. Tonight's movie is Apollo 13 and from 1995. So if you'd like to join us and have not checked in yet, please come with your call, your name, and did you see the film? And we'll have you on the list and we'll ask you about it. So anybody else would like to join us, please come now. All right, hearing none, I'll go ahead and give my 2 cents worth. I think everybody pretty much covered all the things I was going to cover, which is perfectly fine. I did read the books, Lost Moon and Failure is Not an Option. Lovell and Krantz stories were both very, very interesting and talked about Apollo 13 as well as the other missions. Even Lost Moon touches on some of the previous missions up to that point. One thing that is true, and this is brought up, is that the astronauts did not bicker and fight with each other, and that whole dialogue was made up, and that's what Jim Lovell said to us, the group, when we were talking to him. I'll name drop. I did get a chance to meet Jim Lovell, and I've met Fred Hayes twice, and they're both fascinating individuals. Heroism galore. And they're both pretty much modest about it, although it's pretty hard not to know the story since it became this world wonder movie as well as a worldwide concern and sensation back in when it occurred. Let's see. Plot-wise, everything else worked pretty well, I thought. As Tony mentioned, I don't want to retread, but he's right. In order to make the film interesting and to work, and Virginia also brought this up, you have to you have dramatic license. Otherwise, you would end up with a movie that's, 4 or 5 days long, covering all the things, and you're pretty much creating the same thing, and you can't do that. Now, in my job, one of the things that we do is I do technical video stuff for our company, amongst many other things, but that's one of them, is when we sit down and actually make videos for technicians, one of the things that you have to do is you have to decide what are you going to show them and what aren't you going to show them. Because this very same thing pops up. How much information do you want to bring? And in some cases you have to summarize. Because you're not replacing a flight manual or a flight journal or, in my case, a service manual or technical information. You want to give the exact information that's necessary in order to convey a thought. And that's exactly what's happening in this particular movie. So some of the characters are amalgams of multiple characters. There were thousands of people on this program and hundreds of them working the loop with directly involving Apollo 13. So you had to, combine those people together. And if you read the wiki, you'll find out who those people were. So there is that. Other things about the film I found were just tremendously wonderful. I don't want to go into the technical aspects, but I kind of have to in a way, because the way the film is depicted gives the astronauts, or gives authenticity to the actors playing the astronauts, from the weightlessness to the absolutely perfect command module control stations all along there, the panels that are used. Kids, I know the inside of the command module fairly well, simply because I stare at it every week or every other week at the Frontiers of Flight Museum, so I know where things are, and it's absolutely perfect. And they treat the controls exactly right, everything about that film is just wonderful to behold, and I just really appreciate that when that happens. Now, people have heard me rant and all that about roll patterns on Apollo 13, but I'll get to that on the third round. But that's about the only thing I could say bad about the film, and that's pretty minor when you get to it. Let me see, what else can I say? Yeah, the mid-course correction stuff I do not remember it as being all that dramatic. I do know that some of the, and I have to go back and look, but some of the course corrections were actually done with the RCS motors on the lunar module and not the main engine. So I believe they pull from the same fuel supply. So it would make sense to go ahead and use those because the platform itself would be more stable, and you could go ahead and do your longer burns more accurately. So I know that happened on at least one of the mid-course corrections. I don't know on the prime one, but I kind of want to think, and maybe somebody could look this up. I have to go back and look. I'd say we're all RCS burns, and it wasn't quite as dramatic as they made it out to be. Oh, and in case you don't know, reaction control system, these are the small thrusters that are used to rotate and turn the spacecraft to various positions. Those are truly rocket engines. They're just very small, and they can do and make some of these changes as well. So there you have it. I guess that's all I'll say on the actual plot on the film. I, like everybody else, have seen it a million times. I just love the thing. Okay, let's go to the top of the list. The next section we're going to talk about is characterization. Were the actors in this film convincing, and were the characters well depicted from what you remember, if you do, from the mission or from any of the mission recordings that are available, especially online? So we're going to go ahead and start with Tony and T5TM. Tony, your thoughts on characterization for Apollo 13 from 1995.
Thank you, Tom. I promise a strange round 3 comment, or at least an unusually ham-applicable one, about an important lesson learned from this movie. But, characters. Oh, characters. You know, we're all people. We're not rocks. All the simplifications made in this movie. You know, they could easily have turned this movie into Das Boot. It took hours and hours to transfer those amps from the lunar module battery to the command module battery, and they were so cold. And it would have been just like, they should have, they could have just gotten the people from Das Boot. But they made their own movie, and they made their own movie largely by focusing on the humans. We're people, we're not machines. Oh, the people. That, to me, I do love the technical stuff, don't get me wrong. It's great background. I enjoy it tremendously. I learn things from it. I do love this movie. But the thing that makes this movie so much fun for Aaron and I is the people. As I mentioned it during our discussion of Maroon, Marilyn Lovell really did have a nightmare about this movie. They worked that in there. Just the human touches, they feel so real to me. Yes, there are exaggerations and imperfections. They really didn't have any doubt about, if you can't dock this thing, we don't have a mission. They added lines like that no one at NASA would have said, because actually the backup astronauts were highly trained too, and they trusted one another, blah, 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 blah. But they created such real people, and it felt so nice. I loved Jim Lovell's mother. The first thing Aaron said when I mentioned this movie was going to be our topic tonight, she said, well, make sure to include, if they could get a washing machine to fly, my Jimmy could land it. The worry on children's faces, the way the reporters go after the neighbor's diaper service man. There are so many beautiful looks of worry, omens, the wedding ring, the dropped salad on the kitchen floor. There are so many touches. The tired people asking, is it AM or PM? Because they're sleeping in like a tape storage room on the floor. Just so many human touches. That, to me, is what really sells the movie. The technical stuff is great background, but the thing that makes me laugh or cry or feel my heart speed up is being able to identify with all these characters who, whether they're composites or simplifications or exactly right and realistic or not, all feel real. And it's hard to even single them out, because whether you're Tom Hanks or whether you're that guy sleeping on the floor of the tape storage room, just as in real life, to bring the astronauts home, it takes this unbroken chain of working hard to make a movie full of good characters. It takes an unbroken chain of actors doing well, and that's what this movie had. From the smallest part to the part with the most screen time. Yay! NT5TM.
Very good. Thank you, Tony. Next up, Virginia, NV5F. Your thoughts on characterization for Apollo 13, KE5ICX.
KE5ICX, NV5F. I like the characters. I have watched quite a few documentaries with the real people talking, and I've seen this movie so many times that it's amazing. I'm always thinking in the back of my mind how different that they seem from the actors playing them in the movie, but at the same time I think the actors did a good job of doing them, doing right, doing honorably, and doing them justice as people, and then the actors still remaining who they were and bringing themselves into the roles. I mean, Tom Hanks, he's so likable that you're just going to like Jim Lovell, no matter what. But I always think it's interesting to hear the voices of the real people, or see how different Gene Kranz is from Ed Harris, even though I love Ed Harris as Gene Kranz, and I believe him. So I agree with Tony. All the acting was wonderful. All the extremes in character that were taken to just make a good story were done pretty well. I'm not sure if Jack Swigert was as, such a crazy guy like they kind of made him seem. He was a bachelor as compared to the other astronauts, and that was an unusual thing at the time, and they definitely played that up, and played up the conflicts with the news reporters suddenly being interested in the mission because it was because it had become a drama, and I know that some of that stuff did go on, and they even had stuff like that in The Right Stuff. They had that moment where President Johnson wants to talk to Annie Glenn, and they won't let her, and the reporters are swarming around the house taking pictures and trying to get in the door, and I know that kind of stuff really did happen. So they did a good job turning a long series of events that became probably became very monotonous and grueling, and they did make it into a good story where you get excited for and with the characters when things begin to work out at the end, and we know they make it. We know the story before we ever see the movie, but we still, the characters are so good and the story's so good that we're still on the edge of our seats, every time, waiting to see if they come out of ionization blackout. And you just, the way Tom Hanks plays that role, and when he says this is Odyssey signing off, I mean, you can't help but choke back tears. It's just a great performances, great movie. Makes you love the people in real life, a great deal, even though you've never met them or talked to them. You've maybe read their book or seen them in a documentary or met them briefly at a book signing. But it's just I can't really, there's just not anything really bad I can say about this movie. I just love it so much. Even the if we have an end round, talk about the music. So anyway, I'll be quiet now. KU5ICX NV5F.
Oh, Virginia, it's okay. We fully agree with you. You're amongst good company here. Next up is Romy, N8WWR. Romy, characterization. Were these actors acting like astronauts, or were these astronauts acting like actors? A good question. What do you think from KE5ICX?
From what I can recall, they did an excellent job. The actors did an excellent job of playing the astronauts, and it made it feel like you were back there in that time of the actual mission there. And yeah, it was. That's what I can recall there, Tom. Back to you, NAWR.
Right, Romy, it's okay. Next up is Brenda, WB50ZL. Brenda, what did you think of the acting? You've met these astronauts. You met two of them, and you've met other astronauts. So what do you think? Do Tom Hanks and Bill Paxton and Kevin Bacon play these roles accurately? What do you think from KE5ICX?
Yes, this is WB50ZL. I think they did really excellent jobs of portraying those astronauts. Of course, there's plenty of footage of all the astronauts, so they had a lot to work with. And, but they're such wonderful actors also. Also, one of the most special things I've ever done in my life was about 30 minutes one-on-one with Gene Kranz. He did a lecture and book signing at the museum, and in the afternoon it was just him and me there in the lobby, and we just sat and talked for about 30 minutes. And he is amazing. If you didn't know who he was, or you didn't know he was special, you would after spending a few minutes with him. He is an extraordinary person. I think Harris did a pretty good job of portraying him, but I just don't think he had enough airtime to really capture his personality. I read his book too. It's amazing. And he's one of the reasons we had such a good space program. No question. The actors were cast well, although I understand that John Aaron was played by Clint Howard, which really, that's the only thing I might take issue with. I don't know if Clint pulled in a boyhood favor or what. But yeah, I mean, he was okay just as a controller. But I wouldn't have thought of him first to cast John Aaron. I really think they got the whole feel of the 60s down, or 70s, I mean, the era. Everybody smoked. The clothes, the cars. It was an extraordinary period in time, and with the space program especially. And I think they captured a lot of that so well. So, okay, well, I'll quit there. WB50ZL.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. Next up, oh, by the way, I messed up. We were talking about that, and I think I set you wrong. Actually, he plays Cy Liebergott, who was on one of the other ECOM guys, and that's maybe why I mixed them up too, because John Aaron was there, played by Lauren Dean, actually. and both Cy and John were econ guys, so it's easy to get them mixed up. Okay, next up is Brian, KI5ZKL. Brian, your thoughts on characterization for this film from KE5ICX? Okay, he may have checked out. It is getting late, so okay. Let me go down to Cody. I'll check on him again on the next round. K5MCD. Cody, your thoughts on characterization for Apollo 13?
Well, I suppose I kind of jumped the gun earlier and gave some feedback of what I thought of some of the actors' performances in the first round. So, I think overall, they did, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but my recollection is they did a good job portraying the technical portions of it. I think in general, there was quite a bit of emotion portrayed that wouldn't have really come through. They would have been focusing on the task at hand a lot more than the emotion. But I realized, that's Hollywood, and you've got to make a story, and you've got to get people engaged and get them to feel something to keep them engaged. I will throw one thing out there that I do think was unforgivable, and that was Tom Hanks' delivery of the problem line. The misquote was, I believe, attributed to a screenwriter, but I think that was a pretty big blunder in the perfection of the film. K5MCD, back to that.
Okay, thank you, Cody. Next up is Cruz, KI5KWG. Cruz, your thoughts on characterization from KE5ICX?
KI5KWG. Hanks versus Costner. Lovell said that when they asked him who he envisioned playing him, he suggested Kevin Costner. I thought that was interesting, and that might have been a pretty good choice too. But Hanks did a good job. Sinesi as Mattingly was impressive to me, but Gary Sinesi usually is impressive to me. Krantz was a little disappointing as a major player in this, especially since I had watched Apple TV's For All Mankind, and Eric Layton, I think is how it's pronounced, it may be Latin, just nailed Gene Krantz. I mean, he even had the accent down. That was excellent. The other characterization note I have here is Roger That. I heard Roger That 100 times during this film, and it was something drilled into me when I was learning radio in another life, sort of, and that was like saying Roger Wilco. It was redundant, and but they said it all the time in the film. I went back and looked at the transcript. It was indeed said, always by a Capcom. I don't know if it was the same one, but always by a Capcom responding to Apollo 13, saying Roger That at the start. And it was used 11 times during the mission. And like I said, I think it had to have been 100 in the film. It got annoying to me. That's what I've got on this. KI5KWG, back to net.
Wow, that was quick. Okay, well, we got you. KF5 PDS, Miss Billy, your thoughts on characterization from KE5ICX? maybe I got her to sabotage her own computer. So let's see. KSI PDS, Billy, you there?
Here, am I coming through better now?
Yes, now we can hear you. Go ahead. Yes, we can hear you.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, characters, I thought they were all wonderfully portrayed. Tom Hanks always does a wonderful job with whatever character he's given. You just get immersed into the story through the characters. I love the chemistry between Tom Hanks and Kathleen Quinlan for Jim and Marilyn Lovell. I just thought they were just really cute together. And showing their home life and how things were around the house, I thought it was great with the kids. Yeah, I agree. I had heard that them arguing on Apollo 13 was totally fabricated, so that to me, I don't like that part because you know that that's not how they would behave as astronauts. So that's one part of the characterization that I did not like, but I know they were pulling that in for dramatic license to keep the audience interested, but so that's one part that I do not like. I liked that they got Jim and Marilyn Lovell in there, the real people. Marilyn is in the crowd when they launched Apollo 13, and of course, is the commander that salutes them when they return on the aircraft carrier. And I thought that was great that they had wanted to give him, I think, a higher rank, like an admiral's uniform, but he said no, he would wear commander because that was his actual rank. And I thought that was really wonderful of him. This shows you how upstanding they are. Yeah, I'm not sure about the true nature of the Spigert character, the way Kevin Bacon portrayed. I do seem to remember, and someone can correct me, when he was like doing the transposition and docking, and they were making it like he was this total rookie that couldn't do it, and how they were kind of doubting his abilities, and I don't think that was true at all. That's another part that kind of irritates me, that I don't like that part of the characterization where they try to downplay an astronaut's abilities. It's like, you know, that they had a short turnaround, but, you know, they were incredibly professional, and they would make sure that everybody knew their job inside and out before they were in that capsule and put in that. So those are parts of the characterization I didn't like, but other than that, I thought they were wonderfully portrayed, and really enjoyed, as y'all pointed out, Jim Lovell's mom. You know, she was just so endearing, but you can tell she was a tough bird. She wasn't easily rattled, although you could see concern in her face towards the end. And I thought it was nice that Marilyn had asked, you know, Neil and Buzz to kind of watch her and distract her if things got a little too intense. I thought that was nice. And of course, Ron Howard's dad, Rance Howard, playing the minister, the priest who was there to comfort them. And of course, that was Ron Howard's mom that played Jim Lovell's mom. I thought that was great that he was able to get his parents in there. And I especially like the portrayal of Lauren Dean as John Aaron. John Aaron was a huge part of, you know, and troubleshooting things. You know, he was the one who used them to switch SCE to AUX at Apollo 12, and he had key insight on this mission as well. I thought that was just a great portrayal by Lauren Dean. He really, I think, did it with that character. Portraying John Aaron, who was but very brilliant engineer and physicist. So, just all around, you know, even in the room, all the characters were portrayed very well, and Ed has in his role as well. So With that, I'll return it to you, Tom. This is KF5TDS. Back to net.
All right, thank you, Billy, and thank you for your comments. This is KE5ICX. This is the Afterglow Movie Net. We're talking about Apollo 13, a movie from 1995 starring Tom Hanks, Kevin Bacon, Bill Paxton, and Gary Sinise. I can't forget him, the grounded Ken Mattingly. Okay, anyone else who would like to join us this evening, please come with your call, your name, and did you see Apollo 13, the movie? All right, hearing none, I'll go ahead and make my comments. Yes, I agree. This is an ensemble cast, and in fact, they were rewarded for that, awarded with that, with one of the movie awards for really being a good cast. And I thought everyone was well portrayed. I didn't mind Ed Harris's portrayal of Gene Kranz playing Ed Harris, but I thought he did pretty good Ed Harris as Gene Kranz. Not too bad. Maybe a little more stuffy. There's a comment in here about him cramming for final exam and described Gene Kranz as corny and like a dinosaur, but respected by the crew. There's just that comment. I don't know about that. He was well respected. Everybody knew he would do the job, and he helped write mission control and what MCC would be doing anyhow. I mean, the guy knew everything and had to know everything, and he made sure that other people knew everything or they knew their job. He also put a lot of faith in his controllers team. Well, that's one of the things I was going to mention is that, you know, when you portray the Mission Control Center and those controllers, those guys weren't very old. They were in their 20s, maybe broke 30, and you could see that they were more like in their 30s and 40s as cast. That is incorrect. They were very young people. Some of them even answered ads in newspapers. True story. Keep that in mind. And also because it was so new, the space program was new, and these people had worked probably on Mercury and definitely on Gemini. And when they got to the Apollo program, they were experts, even though they were kids. And there was no way that you could tell them that they couldn't do a job. And they always did. And that was partly because of Gene Kranz and his leadership and believing in his people. And I think that sort of happened. I would have liked to see more of that. But if you do see something along the, go see From Earth to the Moon, the entire series. You'll get a better understanding of that. Or read the books. Failure is not an option. Excellent choice. Now, it was mentioned For All Mankind as a series which is sort of a fictionalized version of the space program. I think you'll find that quite interesting. And yeah, the Gene Kranz character is played extremely well there. Uber cool, I have to say. Let's see, who else can I mention in here? Hanks did an admirable job as Jim Lovell. I think he captured it quite well. Kevin Bacon was fun playing Kevin Bacon, playing Jack Swigert. Kevin Bacon, of course, sort of played Kevin Bacon and everything. And then one of my favorite actors who died much too young, Bill Paxton, is just great. I love him in everything he does. He plays different roles. He's a very respected actor. And of course, Gary Sinise, who doesn't like him in anything that he does? He does a nice, admirable job at Ken Mattingly. So I thought all of this, the acting was just superb in this film, and I think they got it down quite well. The other characters, or the other actors playing all the different mission control people were quite good as well. All right, that's all I'm going to say on that one. We're going to get to the juicy part. Well, we got 9 minutes. Let me see if we can get through this. I'm going to start at the top. Tony, your thoughts on special effects, music, whatever you want. Your parting shot. Go ahead, from KE5ICX.
Sure, music was great and supportive. The real zero-G is one of my, this movie has so many things to love. I got that phrase, the unbroken chain, from Gunter Wendt, who see an actor briefly playing him in the first part of the movie. He coined that phrase for all the people it takes to make a space flight go vroom when it launches and not kaboom. He loved that phrase, and I like it too, because it's all the people it takes to make a good movie. So yeah, we had a great unbroken chain here of everything from set dressing to music, to every actor at every level, to sound mixing, to lighting. Just a really polished, professionally done movie that never makes you feel, ooh, I'm in a movie. My surprise third round comment I wanted to work in is that the real Apollo 13 is actually an important lesson for me in emergency management and RACES and my job in work. Gene Kranz was, yes, definitely the first among equals. He was the senior most flight director, but he was one of 4 people on this mission who was entitled to call themselves flight. Gene Kranz, Gwynn Lunny, Milt Windler, and Jerry Griffin. They were all brilliant people, and here's the scary thing that happened in real life. Partway into this emergency, just 2 hours in, Gene's shift was up, so he turned it over. NASA had learned the hard way something that really matters in actual critical incident management. You get burned out, you get exhausted, you get tired. When your operational period is up, you give a briefing and you walk off, you go somewhere else. You might do something else related to the mission, but you can't keep doing the same job hour after hour. 2 hours into the real Apollo 13, white flight handed his job over, I think, to black flight, Gwynn Lunny. They had color code names for their teams, and they wore vests and hats and things. And that is something that real emergency managers learned from this mission and had a really lasting impact, was NASA's dedication to rotating their people whenever they, to the extent that they could, really paid off. It helped keep people fresh. So that's in a real disasters like the Grenfell Tower fire that kind of didn't work as well when you don't do that. It tends to be very bad. So a beautiful movie, a great story, and a lot of things we can learn in real life from the actual incident. Aaron wanted to give a third round shout out to the Apollo in Real Time, apolloinrealtime.org. She loves listening to the very calm and orderly people talking with their teams as you go through Apollo 13 in real time, listening to the actual audio. It's something outstanding. And Aaron and I we've had whole evenings, strange date nights, listening to parts of this mission play out in real time as the different teams and controllers talk to each other. So we had to mention that. Thank you very much for giving me all this time. I know it's late. NT5TM.
Very good. Thank you, Tony. Yeah, I love that website too. There's about 5 or 6 missions that are completely done in real time, and they are fantastic. Next up is Virginia, NV5F. Virginia, your parting shots on technical aspects, music, or something you may have forgotten for Apollo 13 from KE5ICX.
KE5ICX, NV5F. I was just dozing off. I think Tony was talking about the Apollo Online website. That's a really cool website. Well, the technical stuff where they actually used the Vomit Comet to shoot some of the weightless scenes, that was great. That's technical greatness. It's hard to believe it's real practical effects. I'll make it short. I love the music in this movie. It's really great, just sweeping, cinematic music, but it's also got a lot of really neat classical forms and stuff that a person who studied music can really appreciate it. It's just really, really well done, not overdone. It's just right, and I'm tired, and I could talk forever about how great this movie is. So they just did a good job on it technically. They made it realistic, and I'll probably watch it 100 more times. I hope everybody has a good night and a good rest of your weekend. This is in V5F.
Thank you, Virginia, and thanks for participating this evening. I'll give Romy in 8WWR. You got anything you would like to bring? Final comments for the net. Go ahead from KE5ICX.
Yeah, I know they've all been so great. Final comment is I need to see this movie again. It's definitely on the list to watch again there, and yeah, and I forgot about old Clint. I feel Clint gets a job in all of Ron's movies, so yeah, I got to see it again, and thanks for running the net, Tom. NAWR. Bye.
All right, thank you, Romy. And don't forget, Clint also played Beta-Locke on Star Trek. I hope you enjoy Tranya as much as I do. He didn't have to wear any makeup because he was just creepy looking in Star Trek. Okay, next up is WB50ZL. Brenda, your final comments, technical or otherwise. Go ahead from KE5I6.
This is WB50ZL. Well, all I can say is it just all looked real. I don't know how they put together all that equipment, making it look so real. Weren't Sage 7 computers for sure. I don't know how they did it. I'm sure it's written somewhere you could find out, but I was just amazed because you thought you were really there. And as far as I know, they didn't make any boo-boos on the technology and the science, but kudos to them. All right, I'll quit. It's late. WB50ZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda. Next, Cody, K5MCD. What do you got for us for final comment?
Well, as I recall, it was a lot of practical effects, a lot of flying in the vomit comet for the actors, for the zero-G stuff, and I remember hearing about that during the production and really enjoying that conceptually, and I think it probably lended a lot to the performance and the film overall, as opposed to try to use some of the CGI that was available at the time. K5MCD, back to net.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Cody, thank you to Cody, and thanks for your participation this evening. KI5KWG, Cruz, what final comments do you have? I know you got to have a few because you love this film.
KI5KWG, I do have some final comments, but I believe we skipped Brian, KI5ZKL.
Elvis has left the building.
Yeah, I think he left, but let me try. Let me go ahead since you deferred. Let me see. KI5ZKL. Brian, are you still there and you have any final comments? Yeah, he kind of said 73, and I think he was out of there. So, Cruz, go ahead.
KI5KWG. I noticed that when I first started watching the film, I was being hypercritical because I do know a lot about the mission. And when I listened to a interview with Jim Lovell and others, and where he spoke about the film to some extent, and he said there were like, I know that people that know the mission well will point out there were 132, that was the number he used, 132 factual errors. Well, I caught myself doing that about 5 minutes in, so stopped. Just made myself behave and enjoy the film. Starting scene, a short scene with Lovell, Hanks, seen floating alone in the command module trying to sleep, and he comes back into the LEM and says it's just too cold out there. Well, that was real. That's how he was trying to sleep. Hot air rises, but in microgravity, it has no rising to do. And so he found himself enveloped in his own body heat if he stayed still enough and was able to get an hour's sleep or so. I thought that was interesting, although they didn't explain it in the film. My major big flaw that I noticed, just big error, was the docking probe still shown installed when they undocked from the limb, and that was going to really cause them to have a very, very bad day when it was time to deploy the chute probes. That's what I've got. KI5, KWG, I'm clear. Back to net.
Cruz, I never noticed that, and you are absolutely correct. Oh, I'm in awe of you. Okay, next up is Billy, KF5 PDS. Billy, your final comments on anything you want to talk about, technical or otherwise, from KE5 ICX.
Ham Fixin's Net, first and third Monday, 7 p.m., W5FC.
Yeah, I just want to throw out there, love James Horner's score. It's so moving, and it's my favorite part. I'll watch the credits all the way to the end just to hear the music. I looked up some trivia, so I found some interesting things. That Marilyn Lovell, yes, she really did lose her ring down the drain, but eventually found it again. I love the Vomit Comet. It must have taken them forever to record, to do all that footage in zero-G, because, you know, it's only up there for, you know, a few seconds, and then it has to come back down again, and then go back up again. And I wondered if the actors got sick going through all that, and I found a comment that said that Bill Paxton, Hanks, and Kevin Bacon were all very proud of the fact that they weren't sick on the Vomit Comet, but the cameramen weren't so lucky. So I feel for the camera guys. But I would love to ride on that too. It'd be something to experience real zero-G. I would highly recommend reading Fred Hayes' account, Never Panic Early, another good motto for emergency management. It's called Never Panic Early, an Apollo 13 Astronaut's Journey. Highly recommend reading. And it's also on Audible if you're into audiobooks. But anyway, wonderful net. Really enjoyed it. Look forward to hearing what next week's movie is going to be. So I'll return it to you, Tom. This is KF5 PDS, back to net.
Very good. Thank you, Billy. Yeah, and I will do that just when I finish my comments. Yeah, well, a couple of things. Certainly, I thought technically it was great. Everything about it worked well. I always complained about the roll patterns. I never understood why they didn't just use actual footage that they had from the Apollo 13 launch. Instead, they used a roll pattern that was used on what was called the 500F vehicle, which was the facilities rocket that never flew. And in a lot of movies that ends up happening, and I'm not quite sure why. It even happened in For All Mankind in an episode. Just seems to go back to that pattern that was never flown in space, but at any rate, doesn't matter. Another thing that was interesting is I did see the model that was used, or the set, I don't know what you call it, a prop, really, of the Apollo 13 command module. That was quite interesting. That was used in the Vomit Comet in order to get all those scenes.
W5FC.
The interesting thing is I saw it in Cape Kennedy when I was down there visiting one time, and I saw it again at the Cosmosphere up in Hutchinson, Kansas. So I've seen it twice, and once really up close. It's all 2x4s is all it is. Sort of a rig, a jig that's set up, and then all of the panels and everything are on the side. But boy, they sure made that look realistic. Loved every minute of it. Oh, one comment I was going to make, I didn't make it on the previous line, but I'm going to do it now, is when the spacecraft came through the clouds, the parachutes opened and everybody broke into pandemonium and clapping, and everybody was slapping each other on their backs. That did not happen. In fact, that was discouraged on any mission because the spacecraft could still hit the water and kill the astronauts or otherwise sink. So you don't do that. It's only until the astronauts are actually on board the recovery ship, that then they would celebrate, because at that point the mission is still on. They're at console checking everything, even though it's the final minutes. So no, that wouldn't have happened, but that would have really made for a bad ending. Now people are sitting around staring at their consoles when we know the mission has successfully, has almost completed successfully. Also, if you're a soundtrack fan like I am, I did manage to get the full soundtrack available about 5 years ago. It does. If you have the soundtrack, it has a lot of the voiceovers from the movie, or the dialogue from the movies, I should say. And that's kind of annoying when you're listening to music. But they did it. But I think it was La La Land Records came out with a complete disc recording with all the music and took the dialogue off the track, so you get the actual music. And they took away all of the pop music and put the actual soundtrack in. Kudos to La La Land Records for doing that. They do that a lot. If you're into soundtrack scores, they are the people to check out a lot of times. So they do an excellent job on redoing these movie scores. All right, well, that's it from me. Let me give me a second here. I'll tell you what next week's movie is. Stand by. All right, forgive me. Sometimes I get carried away and I forget to queue up what the next movie is. I've added a bunch of films into the list and queue. We have a movie I've never heard of before, but it came out in 1996 called Time Master. Time Master. That'll be next week's movie. That'll be February 4th, I do believe. So come back then. I will send out the info on this film sometime tomorrow morning. So you should get it in your inbox. If you're not getting anything in your inbox, send me an email, let me know. I'll make sure you're put on the list. Or go to the Facebook page, which is Afterglow Movie, 2 words, Afterglow and Movie, and then look under the guides, under the guides section, and you'll find what the films are that are coming up over the next month. That's it from me. I want to say 7-3. Thank you, everybody, for your comments this evening. It was fantastic. And I got to put the new doggy to bed. She is just passed out on the sofa. She has made herself at home here at home. So I think she's going to be a good fit with the family. And the grummet seems to tolerate her pretty well. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week. This is KE5ICX Clear.
Yeah, she looks like a sweetheart there, Tom. Thanks for taking her in NAWWR.
Aaron and I are now sad we didn't watch YouTube, but we could have seen the new dog, NT5TM.
Well, she went over and laid down and went to sleep. She had a very busy afternoon. She just kept going and going. She found bones and toys, and I mean, she was in seventh heaven over here. Grummet, not so much. He's trying to figure out what to do with her at this point. But she had a very busy afternoon, so when it was time to go to sleep, she just went poof, and she was out. She is a cutie, I gotta say. So, and she suffered from black lab syndrome, which is that it wouldn't adopt her. People won't adopt black dogs for whatever reason. That's all I've ever had are black dogs. I think they're adorable, and she just fits right in. KE5ICX.
Well, we were glad it was a good day and we don't get the black lab syndrome.